first palpitation, right by your side, so they find your indignation and leave it behind.
Damn it, way to mess it up. I thought I had everything under control. All right, this is the Seduction Show, everybody. This is episode 3. I'm your host, Hans Komen. This is a show about seduction. This is a show about love, romance, and seduction. And it's particularly focused on helping men get the results they want with women. This means that questions will come in and we'll try to see where someone in particular is stuck, and also how we can help them get the results they want. So give them one of the 8 to take it to the next level, and then we'll ask from the person to commit to that new action and report back, so we can over time see the progress. We have a couple of questions here today. As usual, we will be following Anthony, where he's at. Anthony is the guy behind the keys here, the technological wizard, which is anybody other than me. And we also have Michael, and I asked Michael to come again, especially for one question, the one from Xavier, and he's also on the call, so we'll talk with him in a little bit. These calls are set for 1 hour, so we really have to figure out the best way to move forward with each one of you and ditch the fluff. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Michael. I'll go right into it, and actually we'll ask Anthony, as we do every week, where he's at. So just to guide you, for the ones who did not hear episode 1 and 2, I talked with Anthony on every episode, and we went from dealing with the key of preparation and structural solutions. And that was practically dealt with him moving to a college town where he has a plethora and abundance of beautiful women. And then we figured out that his next sticking point, but also success key, would be the expression of his desire. He's been practicing with things like saying spanking in the first 5 minutes and using the word sexy, just to start playing around with that. And he had a couple of successes. But what happened in the last 2 weeks, Anthony?
Hello. So quite a bit has happened in the past 2 weeks. I think the first thing is, and I'm so embarrassed to talk about this, but I got reported for making some girls feel uncomfortable. And
yes.
And I'm okay. I was called into the office, and I showed up, and I played my cards right, so I'm not in trouble. Nothing is written on record or anything like that. I didn't even do anything wrong, to be honest. Like, nothing crazy. I think there's a fine line between sexual harassment, and that's not what I did. But one thing I did
Anthony,
realize...
if I can just interrupt really quick. Hans, don't you have some kind of like award you give him for like moving to this level on the path to being a seducer?
It's shocking to me, that he says, don't worry, I did it right. I talked myself, I was, making them whatever believe that you're a good boy, It's that it has come to this is incredible, But continue a little bit if you want to say more. You have an award. Actually, maybe this is like a requirement. Until you get reported, you're not allowed into the next phase. Seducer.
Definitely.
But it's shocking. It's shocking how I was just talking about this with an American woman this morning, and she's great. She understands the situation. And I said, you used to, a man was, what he couldn't do was rape a woman, let's say, and it has come, which is completely understandable. It has come to a point where a man is no longer allowed to make a woman feel uncomfortable. In fact, you got to be great with women before you can talk with them. You cannot make mistakes. You cannot make it uncomfortable, because the whole responsibility of an interaction, an encounter, to go say wrong in any possible way is put on the man, so he's like, that's why men are hesitant, plus
Yeah, it's outrageous. I mean, how nice a guy Anthony obviously is. I can't imagine, like, I mean, people listening to this could be like, imagine that he did some terrible thing to make them feel uncomfortable, and I mean, Jesus.
It's worse, when I say awkwardness, the awkwardness is, to me, is at the essence of what a seduction is about. If you meet someone you really like, it's awkward because you have that strong feeling, so awkwardness is at the essence of every, to me, successful seduction, successful meeting. And yet we've come to a point where awkwardness is seen as something to be avoided, and the responsibility for it is completely put with the Western man. That's the fucked up situation we are in the West. And Anthony is a prime example of it, because it's true. He's so upbeat. He's very positive. He's unassuming. And this guy gets reported. It's insanity. When I heard it, I couldn't believe it at first. I think this is incredible,
I agree, but at the same time, I think there were so many things in which I didn't calibrate correctly, and I was kind of not aware of, and I paid for that, right? And if nothing big happened, I'm okay. But something I realized is that I have trouble. This is a big sticking point. We talked about it already. Expressing desire in a way, the way I express it, it's a bit, I can't control it in a sense.
Well, are you running around the campus with your penis out or what?
No,
exactly.
Of course not.
What I'm trying to tell you, that calibration is the result of experience. And what is happening now is them telling you should not get any more experience. You can't get any more experience. So you understand the contradiction in that, Right?
This is this is one of the reasons why I'm such a strong advocate of what we talked about on the last podcast, which would be like Anthony making a trip to Vietnam, and then like getting experience around women there in Vietnam. It would just be a completely different world. Like he'd be taking risks with women and getting just like open responses and just like girls melting, and it would just be the best way to learn, for in that beginning stage.
It's exactly true, and this is going to feed right into the question we have from Dusty. But just for the sake of progressing anyway, because we're here about you getting the results, and when Vietnam is an option, you surely would like to know also what's going on there in your college town and how to improve there. So what is it when you say I've not been calibrating right? What are you referring to, Anthony?
Yeah, I'm trying to think, and I can't pinpoint the specifics because I'm still growing, but for sure something must have went wrong in my part for that to get the reactions. I was talking to after I got reported, I was talking to some people. I think Nate Cham really helped me out, and what he told me was like there were like for great seducers, like they don't get in trouble for this. I don't think. Like they're able to come in a way that makes, the girl feel safe. And I don't think that's what I did. I think in a way, my presence, I kind of made them bring up their guard, their resistance, right? And
do you think they don't feel safe or feel awkward? Like, ugh. Because you don't, to me, you in terms of like creepiness vibe, you have like zero. So what I could see is that you come in with great energy, and that it's like a bit too much maybe for women, like, I got to deal with the energy. But creepiness, I don't see it at all.
Also the indoctrination of the Western culture that, when girls, I think some girls know that I went around for a bit and just talked to a bunch of girls, like probably dozens and dozens in the first 2 weeks. And I think some girls noticed. And when they see a guy do that, they automatically assume that, he's a creep, and they don't know me. They never talk to me. And the first thing they come out in the mouth is, you sound like a stalker, or you seem like a stalker. And it's
Yeah,
like the
I
indoctrination.
I just want to push back on that, because it could be easy to like make that hypothesis that's what they're thinking, and then try to somehow deal with that or try to avoid it or something. But there's a million things they could think if they go see you talk to a bunch of women that have nothing to do with being a creep or anything like that. I mean, it could be totally positive. Just it just depends. I mean,
Yes. Yeah.
but yeah, go ahead.
It's a very I see this happening with you, Anthony, and that's why I know what Michael is referring to. It's this constant a training that we get into being a good boy that makes us second guess ourselves. They say, "Wow, should I be different?" Because everyone is saying it, but everyone in an American college town. I remember going to the States for the first time. I rarely tell this story because I'm like, it's both. Anyway, I went to the States in '97 to study 2 years, and I remember we were maybe I told this story already, and I was at University of South Carolina, and I remember there was this girl, and I was just flirting in a way, but also like teasing her. It was more like teasing. We were teasing back and forth, And one day she was walking in the hall, and I'm walking kind of next to her, and I like trip her half, I put my foot or whatever, and it's like she's not falling, but she's like stumbling, and I remember the head of the sociology department, the woman who's taking care of everything, came to me that evening, and she said something like, "Hans, you got to be very careful, because you could be like someone could sue you for like harassment." And I'm like, either that girl talked to her or she saw or whatever, but to me it was a complete shock and it was my first meeting with that culture that men are so afraid to express themselves because they're judged for this, they're judged for being this kind of guy, and we're trained to be very careful. And so that was very, very interesting to me. Anyway, go ahead. Michael.
Hans, if I can jump in here. Yeah. My next thought is, Anthony, if you have a guy around, a friend, or there's a guy you could befriend who's actually really good at it, he's just congruent with his desire. And if you could just hang out with that guy, you'll kind of start to absorb how he thinks, how he acts. You'll see a role model for it, and that's the way humans learn, just naturally, is we find someone who's a step or two ahead of us, and we just hang out with them, and it's kind of starts happening by osmosis. And that's what happened with me, when I was really moving into, just this whole journey of into desire. I had this guy was amazing at it. I think I mentioned on the last podcast, but I mean, we can talk about a bunch of things on this call, and we will, but that's something that like you wouldn't even have to think very much. Just hanging out with him would start to really,
It's like the last year Michael starts hanging out with me, and all of a sudden he sees how he has to deal with women. It's very through osmosis. He's just figuring this out little by little. And it's never too late.
That was funny, Hans. Hanging out with me has certainly gotten funnier.
All right. Do you have something that you can implement and test out for the next 2 weeks, Anthony?
So something I've been working on a lot more is presence. And so I work long shifts, or not long. There's like 5 hours. That's long for me. And in those moments when there's really nothing to do, I just check in with myself. And I can just check in for like 10, 20 minutes.
Right. What about what Michael just suggested?
Oh, what? Can you repeat that one more time, Michael?
Do you have a friend, or have you put your eye on a guy who's really just natural and great at expressing his desire congruently, and he's there on campus?
I have not. No. I mean,
that could be a good mission, is to seek that guy out, right? And make contact with him.
I have one guy in mind. he, from what I heard, he brings girls back to his dorm like very frequently, but he doesn't really express a lot of like he's not very intentful. Maybe he's intentful in other ways, but not definitely not through his words. But I can definitely seek him out.
Yeah, it
That's
definitely
great.
doesn't need to be through words. In fact, that can have you in your head. And especially, if you're going up to girls and you're thinking about what you should do next, as far as physical contact, like, oh, maybe I should touch her, right, to escalate or something. That can have you really like incongruent because your touching isn't coming from your desire or just the moment or the instinct. It's coming from something in your head, and then that's disconnected from what's alive, and if I can just share like some of the wisdom, I'll just share his. Let's call him O. He called him O, short for like Dr. O, short for orgasmicity. He was just like, at this time in his life, that's just what he was all about, is like aliveness and desire. And I don't know how to necessarily articulate this into a very specific practice, except that if you can start noticing, Anthony, if whenever you're about to do something or you're doing something, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. And if you really feel a desire to do it, then do it. And the more you can start doing that and like learning from it, that's going in the right direction. Because then the more you start paying attention to that, then you're just going to find yourself just only doing exactly what you want to do. And with, there's a way that we are socialized to like act polite or to do what we should do, or to, not interrupt someone. Like if someone's boring the hell out of us in a conversation, we sit there and pretend like we're interested. This is the wrong kind of training. The kind of training that we want here, if we want to become really congruent with our desire, is we have to stop faking shit, stop doing shit that we don't really have a desire to do, start saying no to what we don't want to do, not just with women, with everyone, even with ourselves. And when we want to do something, then fucking do it, And this could be a journey that could take you years to do, go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. But yeah, how does that resonate with you?
Oh man, I really like that idea. I think because I've been doing a lot of dancing lately, like Latin dance, bachata, and kizomba, and there's so many times in which I get in my head, I'm like, I want to do this move, but I'm like, oh, I don't know, like I might mess it up, and I don't do it, right? And so I think it's a really good and I guess relevant practice in my life right now. I can see that implemented in so many different ways.
Here's what what your mission is for the next 2 weeks, and what Michael just said is close to your presence mission. When you're present, go and start looking for what it is you really want and what it is you really don't want, and then act accordingly. That's one. And the second one is to seek out that guy, see what you can learn from him if you can get close and if there's something to learn. And then in 2 weeks' time, when we're back on the calls are going to be every Monday now. Everyone, we've decided this for now is a great time, Monday evening, 9 p.m. Madrid time. So the same time as now, same day as now. Every Monday, every 2 weeks. Sorry, we'll have our calls and then report back next 2 weeks. Is that cool, Anthony?
Yep, sounds good.
All right. I have another question here. Dusty is Dusty on the call? Probably not. You told me he's not here.
No, he's not.
All right. I'll read this out again. We'll have a short answer. I live in an area with an abundance of high quality, good looking men and a shortage of quality, beautiful women. I keep leveling up, but the quality of women I'm dating doesn't go up. I'm really frustrated and feel that it's a hopeless situation. My plan is to move abroad, but is there anything I can do to help my situation while I'm at home? I talked with Dusty about this. It's too bad he's not here, but he made a commitment that within this year he's going to be moving out. He's moving out of the Western situation that he's in, and I always think that's a great solution. It's something any man should. I'm repeating myself. It's something any man should try at least once in his life, because start traveling, seeing a different perspective, seeing that there are other dating scenes, also seeing that there are many places in this world where you as a Western man are welcomed as you are. It's going to be earth shattering, life changing, and it will shape you for the rest of your life. Even when you come back home, you'll be different in the way you interact with the women back home. You'll be a changed man. And so it's something that we stand for, and keep repeating to anyone. At least get a taste. The 2019 is coming to a close, but you should plan at least to get away for a couple of weeks from where you live right now, and go and see another place. I'm in Medellin, Colombia here. It's incredible with the women. It's completely different, and you can hear stories about it, but unless you experience it, you don't really understand what it is. Michael is in Africa, and I went and joined him in Africa last year, and I could sincerely tell you it's been maybe the most how would I say, profound experience, even as a seducer, that I've had, because I was instantly the hot chick there. And it's insane what it does with the body and the mind, and with that experience, how it shapes the way you are with, or the way I am with women anywhere in the world. So Africa, Latin America, Asia, or even the places like Michael is saying, if your ancestors are Vietnamese and you're living in the States, go back to Vietnam and see how you, with Vietnamese origin, but with the American experience, how much of how welcome you are there. So really make that happen. If Dusty is listening, make plans. Make plans, and check out the place you want to go, and buy a flight. You will never, ever, ever regret it. Michael Sky,
Yes.
You want to say something to that?
Yeah, I would say go to the place that like you really desire to go to, that maybe you're even a little bit afraid to go to, that you have really, there's places even in the world where people think, oh, well, only sex tourists go there, only whatever, or there's, go to the place that gives you the most energy to go to, just like as a practice of following your desire. And I use the word tesão because in Portuguese it's like the translation for hard on. And Anthony, when you're thinking about desire, it's really helpful to think of that word, like what gives you a physical, like you feel more alive in your body, like an erection. Doesn't have to be an erection, it could be your heart, right? It makes your heart beat, it's giving you a physiological response. Because I know a lot of times there's a lot of things that we think we want, we're conditioned to want, and if there's a beautiful girl like this, I should be attracted to her. Why am I not attracted to her? I should go for her. And then we're in our mind, but we're not leading with actual desire. We're leading with a thought. So
this is the
go ahead, Hans.
This is the thing with hot girls. Hot girls are like what we see as what society perceives as a beautiful girl. But a hot girl is not necessarily a girl for you. The ones that you're attracted to physically, the ones that you're attracted to with your whole body, by that I mean, they're not necessarily the hot girls. I have so many situations where I first meet a girl and I'm thinking, wow, she's not hot. And then we're incredible. There's an incredible attraction, and the other way around too, And so it's something to be very vigilant about and really check in with you, Do I have this physical reaction like Michael says, the tesão?
Yes. Yeah, when I really started paying attention to that, I found myself hanging out with some women that I never would have even showed up on my radar before. I mean, I can remember one very large woman in particular, back in the States. She was a large black woman, and I just before I was really paying attention to this, I wouldn't have given her time of day. But when I really started tuning into my body and how I feel energetically in the presence of different women, it was like a whole new, what is that? It was like night vision or something. It was like I could see these amazing women who had previously been invisible to me. And these other women who were like show up as like hot on society's radar, some of them didn't even show up at all. So it's it's fascinating.
Speaking of which, that's a great jump into our question with Xavier. Xavier, like the Americans say. Anthony is Xavier on the call. Xavier.
Yes, he is.
Yes, I'm here. Hi.
Hey, Xavier, comment tu vas? How are you doing, man?
Ça va, et toi?
Très bien, très bien. Very good. We're speaking French, people, because he's French and I speak French. Let me do this. You wrote in a long question, well articulated, Xavier. I would like Michael Sky asked you. That's why he's also here on the call. Why don't you? I would like for you to summarize what you wrote all there in 2 minutes, and describe your situation, because I think it's a very important voice. So go ahead and ask your question.
So, well, I have some dates sometimes, but typically not with the women I really want to have dates with. And when I see a woman I like, somehow it never works. I think it's better to give some examples, but for instance, last weekend, like a week ago, I was at a party, and I was at a private party, so a friend was celebrating 4 years in the Netherlands, and not that many people, maybe 20 people, something like this. And at some point I see this woman who seemed charming, so I said, okay, I'm going to approach her. So I go to the toilet, I come back, and on my way back I introduce myself to her, and so we started to chat, and she was a Romanian woman, by the way. And I felt we had decent conversation, but I was being polite. There were some other people there, so it was not like a private conversation. There were people jumping into the conversation, jumping out. And she didn't seem like entirely engaged in the conversation. And so that's it. I didn't really know how to go, to really go into a seduction mode. And I think behind this, there is the fear or the guilt, like that it's not appropriate, that she's not interested in anything more than just a friendly little chat. And I have my friends, some people I know, some people I don't know, but I have all this group of people, and pretty much nobody is seducing anybody in this party. It's just like a friendly, reunion. And so it doesn't seem like so easy to try suddenly to express some interest, and I don't get any sign that this woman might be interested in me. So I didn't really do very much except chatting nicely with her. And at some point I left because I had another party. And that's it. And then I came home and I sent her, I thought, shit, I have to do something more. So I sent her an invitation on Facebook to be friends, and we exchanged a few messages. Again, kind of polite, but I thought, okay, I have to kind of try to meet her again. So I offered to meet. She didn't reply for 3 days. And after 3 or 4 days, she replied, well, this week I'm busy, maybe next week. And then I replied, and I made an offer for either today, actually, or Wednesday, and I got no reply. And that's where I am. And I feel like she's not really interested, and she's embarrassed because I'm kind of expressing some interest that is not really
right.
Desire, and that's where I am. So then I think there is no point insisting further because I'm just annoying her. And that's a bit the impression I have when I meet women I like. They are rarely free first, and when they are, it seems like I don't know how to be interesting to them.
So I'm going to summarize it. I'm going to summarize it because I think this is a situation that many guys are in, and it's this. You correct me if I'm wrong, but from your writing and what you say, beyond the specific situation we can go into right now also, but the issue seems that there are very few women that you really are attracted to, and there are many more women you're not really attracted to, and those are the ones you're seeing, the ones that you're not really attracted to. Among them, there are women that like you, but the ones that you're attracted to, and there are very few of them, they're not interested in you. and it happens very few times that you find a woman that you're interested in. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, there are different degrees. A woman that I'm really, really strongly attracted to, that's very rare. A woman that I'm kind of attracted to, that happens like more often, but it usually doesn't go anywhere because nothing happens. So I just forget about them. But it's still a minority of women, that I would say I'm attracted to. When I go to a party and there are, let's say, 25 women there might be one or two that I might be interested in.
Xavier, can I ask you, Hans, if you don't mind? You basically it sounds like you had a polite conversation with this woman that you're interested in, and then you expressed interest, like romantically or sexually, for a date or whatever, on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
And she didn't get to see you like express the desire in person and then react to that. She didn't see this kind of bold move or whatever, and then she could have had a reaction to it. Who knows? It could have sparked something there in person. But I can really relate to this because I've done this many times as well. Like, you don't make the move in person, and then later with social media or whatever, it's easy to make the move because you're not in person. But I think from the woman's perspective, it's just you didn't have that kind of connection, originally. So my question to you is, like, how did you feel in that conversation with her?
I think there is a part of me that's confused, because a lot is happening. There are other people coming in, other people coming out. I've barely met her. I don't really know if I like her yet. I'm kind of thinking, she's cute, but her responses are not so warm. So I'm a bit kind of, and at the same time, I'm talking and I don't have time to reflect really on what's going on. So there is a bit of confusion in the background in my mind when this is happening.
Yeah. And it's quite likely that if you felt confused, so did she, and then you get on Facebook and you invite her out, and she had a polite, somewhat confusing experience with you, and you're inviting her to have more of that. Basically, that's what she can assume, is that it'll be more polite conversation and maybe a little bit distracted or confusing. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Hans has seen me with women, and he says I'm not a seducer, so whatever his definition of that is. But I have to agree with him on a certain level. But one thing that I do is, like, I get women to react. Women have a reaction to me of some kind, like, and I really push the boundaries. I poke, I tease, I whatever, but they have some kind of reaction, and for me, like, I don't know, like, if I don't elevate the level of, like, connection or reaction or whatever, then it's not even interesting to me personally. So I do that more, and I do it with guys too. Like, I'm kind of, I'm like that. But I'm asking you, like, what you felt in the conversation, because I'm curious, like, how much you were really connected to what lights you up, what makes you laugh, what gets you excited, what angers you. This is if you're connected to this, and this is what you're following in the conversation, this is if you connect to that in you, then she can connect to you, right? She can connect to that feeling also. But if you're not connected to that, then she's just kind of connecting with a guy who's kind of disconnected in that moment. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, from a place of, like, tesão, this word we talked about earlier, which is like.
That's why I agree. I think it's it's correct. It's just not so easy to do it differently for me at this point.
Let me ask you a question. What really gets you excited in life, like, or pissed off or emotional?
I'm interested in spiritual things and in nature.
Uh-huh.
I get pissed off with hypocrisy.
With what?
And
Hypocrisy.
Hypocrisy. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I could talk for hours, you know, but I'm trying
What?
to here.
What excites you about a woman? Like, let's take a woman that like you really felt like
It's like when I really feel something very strong for a woman, which is very rare. It's partly like energetic. I feel like there is like an aura or some kind of magnetism that this person that is kind of calling me. And in that case, when it happens that it's very clear that I feel this thing, then I am much clearer in my approach.
Yes.
From the beginning. So then I tend to be very enthusiastic and transparent, and that freaks out the women usually.
Yes. Yeah, it's interesting, you know.
And so that's also contributing to actually like paralyzing me in most situations. When the intensity of the feeling is very strong, it's driving me. When it's not so strong, I think there is this kind of idea that when I feel something, I'm going to freak out the woman or embarrass her. So I have to kind of control myself.
Interesting.
There is something that my subconscious or semi-conscious is fucked up in that sense.
Yes. So even when you're feeling it, you're not allowing yourself to just go.
But if I feel it strongly, I will allow it. But then I will be rejected. And then I will block it because it makes no sense to harass the person.
Sure.
After I've been rejected clearly 2 or 3 times, you know, like, and I've said, okay, it's fucked. Then I just give up, you know?
Yes. Interesting. I mean, it's, I come back to what I was saying with Anthony, you know, if you have someone there in person or you can go somewhere to hang out with someone or some guys who are like really congruent in that way, it's
I don't know that many people. Actually, I know one colleague who is a Romanian guy, and I went to have lunch with him this last week, and this bastard, he told me the women you want are too good for you.
Women what?
The women you want are too good for you.
The women you want are too good for you. That's what he told you.
Yeah.
I
was a bit pissed.
See, like, I'm looking at you right now. Like, you really got alive when you started to say that. You know, in this conversation, that was the most alive I've seen you. And just to come back to your conversation, like with this woman, if you're like hunting this, like, what makes me come alive? If you're looking for that, instead of looking for like, is she attracted to me? What's appropriate to say? Thinking about.
People tell me in general I'm quite alive. Actually, I was this weekend at a yoga women. There were only women, and one of them, he said, "Oh, you're so cheerful." So, but I think it's like we spend the whole weekend together, you know. So you go past the ice breaking, you know. You get to the point where you have time to spend time with the people, and then it's easier. The problem is, I'm at a party, I see someone, you know, in the street or in whatever environment, and I have to approach that woman first and to break the ice and to get comfortable with that person. And I think this passage is not that easy for me.
Sure. Yeah, it's not that easy for a lot of people. I was sitting in a cafe here in Kenya yesterday. I walked out of the bathroom and there's this gorgeous woman like sitting at the table across from me with her friend. And we shared a moment of eye contact, you know, and I'm focused on my book and I'm working and I have, you know, whatever, and I was making a plan. I was like, I got to give her my number or whatever. And I didn't, you know, and like the energy was there, like, and I missed this amazing opportunity. Like what Hans was talking about, you know, when like it's awkward, it's uncomfortable. Right. And, so I'm just connecting with you that it's not, approaching them that way is not so easy. What do you feel like your main question is here? Because we could go in a lot of directions, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say how to, like if you're in an environment like this where you feel it's not so, most men I know are even worse than me, it seems, like, I mean, they are either married or they are like not even trying. And sorry, don't. But I would say those who are married, they might be happily married, but they don't even try to seduce anybody because they're in their marriage, at least most of them. And those who are single, it seems a good fraction of them, they don't even try to meet women or talk to women.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to generalize here. I'm going to stereotype a little bit, but from what I understand about the Netherlands is the guys have a reputation there of being like really good guys, like really kind, really polite, really like they're kind of the girls that American girls now want American guys to be, They're very like, as far as the Me Too stuff, they're like really good listeners. They're really,
I would say rather than the guys, it's the women that are different. The women are very strong and usually they are bigger than me, taller than me, and not very feminine at all. But I mean, I live in an environment that is mostly international. So like in The Hague, there are a lot of foreigners. So I don't even meet that many Dutch women.
Yes. Yeah, well, that's, if we just talk about...
Men, it's an environment where you have more deficit of women. There are more men than women.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's an easy thing we can talk about there, right, Hans? Because, if most of them are bigger than you and taller than you, and what was the other one you said?
And they want someone same age like them. And I'm looking for someone younger than me. So I get women who are in their 50s, who try to pick me up.
Yeah, man. I mean, so much of it just sounds like you're not in a place with good odds, I mean, it sounds like that's the majority of the thing, man. And yes. I think that's a lot of, yeah.
It's a place with bad odds and which means bad practice. It's not very different than what Anthony is telling. If he's at the beginning of his journey here with women and he's not allowed to practice, that's not easy, And if you're in a place where you are where you're attracted to a very small number of women, and you gotta practice with the ones that you're not really attracted to, it's going to be hard for you to be in tune with what you feel. It's going to be hard for you to follow and know what you have to do based on how you feel, on your tesão. So, and I've been recommending to you to see something else, but I also know that you're working there, and you're building your life there. So, but these are the questions you have to sit in, because we could try to give you a solution for where you're at right now, But if you're going to get next to no practice, it's going to be very hard. So I'm pressing for that again.
Go ahead, and along with you, Hans, like Xavier, I don't know how much you travel, but imagine being in a place where like you are above average height. Maybe you're taller than most of the women and most of the men, and you're from Europe, and you're like you bring it. There's places in the world where you're instantly.
I mean, I know that because I travel, and when I travel, I mean, most of my dates are actually, a good part of my dates are with women that are not from here. After Christmas, I'm going to Senegal. I'm going to spend 11 days with a Tunisian woman. In December, I have an Ukrainian woman who is visiting me. And it's better than nothing, but there is something that's a bit more logistically complex to organize or to...
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely easier, I see, when I'm on Tinder. Most of my dates are Chinese women who are in transit at the airport in Schiphol.
That's an even smaller time frame than I usually have.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Xavier, if I can just leave you with a thought, it would be, I mean, other than going and exploring an international lifestyle or going somewhere, I mean, if this is a big priority for you, I would seriously consider, like, depending on where you are in your life, it might be more important for you to have great success in this area of your life than have just some more money or whatever has you doing your work. But aside from that, what I'm like left with is that you feel like you're not allowed to express your sexuality, your desire, and maybe you feel like you're also not, I don't know, allowed to express other things that are not appropriate, as far as just maybe a crazy side, maybe a stupid side, maybe a you're talking about, I get you're doing yoga, and you seem to me like maybe you're even a person who meditates and everything else, and maybe there's this whole area of your life that you're not allowed to express because it's the unenlightened side, the from the pervert to the asshole to the trickster, the goof off, the whatever. And yeah, as far as like your connections with women, I remember one time I was a group of conscious people. Do you know what is this practice? Oming it, or no, sorry, not oming, circling. Are you familiar with this?
Yeah, I tried it actually once with hands, and there is a group in Holland. I might go soon to try it. Yeah.
Well, I was invited. There's like a leader of these people doing this event on Mount Shasta in California for several days, and I was invited to come with them. And this place also had a bunch of young people it was the summertime. They were going there to learn they were doing vision quest. They were learning skills. They were living outdoors. And there was a beautiful young woman there. I think she was like a volunteer or something. Maybe she was like around 20 years old, early 20s, something like this. And she made a remark to me. She's like, and we were talking, and that, she was getting hit on by a lot of these guys who were in the circling space, and a lot of these guys are in this place where it's like the way that they should be is conscious, the way that they should be is spiritual and all this. And she said something to me like I just feel so much more like free and alive with you, because it's like you're not trying to hide your shadow, like you're not trying to just be in this space that you should be in, and I don't know if there's a specific practice I can leave with you. Maybe Hans can think of something related here, but how does that relate to you? Do you connect with that at all?
I mean, it's not just the spiritual environment, it's the whole society that doesn't allow people to show their shadow.
Right.
Well, this is, let me tell you this. I commend Michael because he wants to meet you where you're at, but I also heard in your story, Xavier, that you're just chatting with that woman, the one you really liked. You're chatting, don't feel a warm response, So my challenge for you is, when you are in one of those situations where you really feel it, that you're really attracted, to a woman, that's what you need. That's what you need to keep exploring. Because you said, well, a couple of times I shut down and then I don't do it no more. But that's certainly not the way forward. The way forward for me seems very much to keep exploring how you're going to use that energy of like really liking someone and express that, because the numbing down, I guarantee you, is not going to work. So my challenge for you would be that when you do feel it with a woman, that's a gift, and you got to keep exploring that.
And I thought of a great model, Hans and Xavier, for you. He's also a Frenchman, and we used to watch him on TV all the time when I was a kid. Cartoon character, Pepe Le Pew.
Pepe Le Pew.
You know Pepe Le Pew?
No, I don't know.
He's a skunk. Come on. He's a skunk. I think it's just an American animal. I don't know.
I am the golden boy. I am your lover. I have posted several times Pepe Le Pew on the Facebook group.
Yes,
he's one of the great examples for me of great.
Yes, he's totally congruent. He's and he's French. He's a French skunk. Skunks in America, like they give off this terrible smell. Like they're sorry?
I see now who it is. Yeah, Pepe Le Pew.
Yes, but a skunk is like no one wants to be around a skunk, right? And yet he's the greatest like seducer, So
I would say that this is great. I'll tell you this too, gentlemen. Anthony tells me that Zoom is giving trouble again, so we will be cut off in a couple of minutes. So, but do think and emulate. Really try to maybe be even Pepe Le Pew. I told you, for me, is one of the greatest seducers of all time, and the congruency is exactly what you need to be looking for. It's fantastic, and just try to look for how you do it, because the toning it down and not expressing the desire and just small talk is certainly not going to work long term. I promise you that, Xavier. Is that a good challenge for you to become Pepe Le Pew? At least trying it out for the next 2 weeks. Be Pepe Le Pew, report back, and then we'll take it from there. I would love to hear how it is going through the Hague in Holland as Pepe Le Pew.
I have to check the video. I don't know what it is exactly, but I will check it.
I can just imagine it right now, man. Oh man, that would transform your whole life. Wow.
It's up to. Go ahead, Michael.
I was just gonna say, if you're really congruent in expressing like that, if you're just in it and feeling it, women respond completely differently. They'll eat it up. They can love it. I'm not saying every single woman, but this guy that I learned from just by watching him, it was like the responses he would get from women had me scratching my head. I was like, man, if I did that, I'd get smacked, And this guy wasn't like he was 7 years older than me. He's not better looking than me. He's like all that you line up all the things like. He did, it wasn't anything except he was so congruent.
And the only way to do it, I'll say that in closing, the only way to do it is by practicing it. Zan tells about this guy who was just loving breast, and he would just tell women, like a boy, can I really, I can't help, but could I see your breast? And the way, this is Zan talking about, the way he would do that, he was so congruent and so alive in it, that he got away with women showing him his breast more than anyone Zan ever saw. They would take him behind a curtain or whatever where nobody else could see them and show them, and that's not something that you can have beforehand, that congruency. That's something like Anthony's, when he was talking about calibrating, that's something that comes with experience. So you got to keep pushing that and try to understand it. So my challenge to you, I say this in closing, is to try on Pepe Le Pew for good measure. Try it on for 2 weeks and see how it looks. And if you report back, we'll continue working, and we'll keep trying to get to the results that you want. And I say that to everyone who's listening here on Spotify or also on Apple. There's a link with a form with a question there. If you have a specific situation that you would like us to work with you on, describe the situation, ask your question, and also describe to us what kind of results that you would like. And then if your question is selected, we'll talk about it in the next podcast. You can come on either anonymously or with your name. We can arrange for that. So if you have a question, go and click the form, ask your question there. Thank you, Xavier, for coming on. I think it's very important voice that you have. Also the questions of Dusty and the other guys. Anthony, thank you for being here. Michael, thank you very much for the input. And we'll see each other again next Monday, same time, 9 p.m. Madrid time for episode 4 of the Seduction Show.
2 Mondays,
Thank
right,
you,
Hans?
everyone. Yes, 2 Mondays. Sorry about that. So on November 25. Bye-bye, everyone.